All right, guys, here we're going to talk about Season 4, Episode 1 of iZombie. Who'd have thought iZombie would even come back for Season 4?
When we declared that at the end of Season 1 that we were going to watch Season 2, and we were joking because we assumed there'd be no Season 2, I, for one, am shocked. This show must be successful. No one I know has ever talked about it. I have no idea who watches this show. Except us. It's us. It's our fault.
Think about how Season 3 ended, though, to be coming back for a fourth season.
I was going to say that.
I was like, all right, this is, and we joked, like, oh, Ravi will have an eye patch, the apocalypse is happening, or whatever.
I still want that.
And not that we were, like, so far off.
No.
Like, it actually is this weird apocalyptic thing almost.
So going back into it, did you remember all of the end of Season 3, or did this episode, like, jog you back?
It jogged me back, where I was like, wait a minute, what even happened here? All right, so zombies have literally taken Seattle. They barricaded it. They've made an ultimatum to the government that we want you dead, or we're going to make more.
But, like, when it ended that way, I think both of us were like, I don't know where they go from here. Like, I can see the path, but that's crazy. It can't just be we live in, like, the green zone in Iraq, but we're still doing the normal eating brains and solving cases thing. That would be ridiculous.
It is.
Who would do that? But here we are.
No, it is outrageous. And there's, like, now the all-zombie police force, it seems, or the zombie task force.
The zombie Gestapo.
You have the Fillmore Graves is like, running this shit. Yeah. And you're like, does that even make sense?
No.
He
like, did the coup. So, like, part of me almost likes this, because there's a lot of shows like this that I will not name because I've never seen any of them, and I don't know if there are shows like this, where there's something supernatural or, like, above whatever, and it just goes undetected for, like, 8 seasons or something like that. But here they kind of bit the bullet and said, oh, no, zombies are, like, public knowledge. Everyone knows about zombies, and we're in, like, the apex of, like, zombotopia, and we're just doing it, I guess, right? So part of me admires that. Part of me is like, that's cool.
I do think there's a lot of places to go from this. In the future, if this was a show that took place already with this having been that's what's weird, I think, is that it went from A to B. So A being a normal world, and now B, this completely not normal world.
Yeah.
And the only weirdness is the transition that we are in. Now, if this world would have always been this B, where zombies are a thing,
if this was
you could have a lot of interesting things there.
If this was the intro credits to Season 1,
yes,
because Seattle is barricaded. And, like,
think about from, like, military standpoints, from, like, science. Imagine like deep space exploration as a zombie. You don't have to worry about, like, the temperature or air or, like, all that bullshit. Just gotta get your brains every now and again.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a lot of cool things that could be done with that in the future. I don't think they're going to touch on those things.
Well, I thought you were talking about how, and they kind of do, like weave in the way things are into the plot of, like, the because it's still business as usual, but they've they have elements of the police state intruding on the business as usual and all that stuff.
Yes, and I don't know how many, like, are there enough Fillmore Graves employees to even do this? And they do suffer a little bit in this episode where they are now hiring, trying to find more people. But I don't think even at their biggest and best and strongest can they hold all of Seattle, period.
I have no idea.
And that's not only to hold it from the government, who I believe does not deal with terrorists. I think they would just kill you. And I don't know what kind of leverage they think they have that they could somehow fend off the U.S. government.
They say at one point, like, it's a good thing not all the civilians got out, because that's preventing the government from nuking us or something like that. So, like, it's an uneasy truce.
I don't think that would even stop us from a potential plague that would kill humanity.
Yep.
And B, I don't see how that would stop the military from just walking in like China and just, like, okay, I have my thermals and I shoot anything that's cold.
Yeah, this is Between all over again.
It just seems like a strange thing. And suspension of disbelief for a bad show aside, it's just a weird element.
Yeah, and a bad show that is a comedy. So, like, it's not necessarily.
Yes.
I'm not sitting here like, it's completely unrealistic. The federal law dictates. Like, I understand that this is meant to be taken.
No, in the same show that has Ravi walking around naked, I can't be like, well, the military doesn't work that way.
Exactly.
It's just like it's little
totally unrealistic. The SG-582 fires a steel caliber shell that would not cause that type of ricochet.
It's fact.
So to run down like the things that happen, right?
So what happened in
We
this
have a
episode?
case. We have another case.
Yes, our first case back into the new zombie world.
And it revolves around the brain tube factory,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm like, okay. And part of me is like, well, they're gonna run out of these things very, very, very shortly. But I do like how they tied it into the the new world the way it is. Yeah, you have a guy. He's not down with the zombie stuff, but it all centers around the Seahawks and his like fandom of like sport things or whatever.
Yeah.
Which whatever. But it turns out we'll just barrel on through or something like that, right? She becomes a super Seahawk zombie hating whatever, and on the other end we've got. It turned out to be his kid and his mom and the whole weird, because like on both ends, it starts at the brain tube factory and it ends with like a zombie lives here, prejudice, weird, like, what? I'm a law-abiding closeted zombie. What's the problem with that? And then it's like, wait a minute, and all that stuff.
Yeah, and like it wasn't a terrible episode. We've seen a lot worse from iZombie. I think it was that they had a lot to barrel over going into the new season and like addressing the whole new world while trying to give us this case and stuff. So like it was an okay episode.
Oh yeah. No,
and I don't know how much more you could expect from how much they had to unpack just to get into this episode.
Completely, and like they had to touch on all the characters. We have to visit everyone. We're like, oh yeah, like every time they would like peter out and like cut to like a new set of characters. I'd be like, oh yeah, she is a zombie. I forgot all about that. Oh man,
yeah.
crap.
I too had some things where I was like, oh, you did get that blood transfusion.
Oh right,
all right, cool.
No, because like perfect example.
Or not blood transfusion. What do they call it? The
vaccine. Perfect example and perfect segue. Babino's ex, now ex or whatever, right? When she's like, I don't even think I'll have to eat the brain to figure that one out. And I was like, oh yeah. And like, that's insane because there was this gigantic thing, right? They were like running, the vaccines are tainted. And then it like cuts to her online and it cuts to her online. And then she's like, like, oh, they like just finished me. And there's like, no, and all that stuff, right? And I had completely forgotten about all that. When I saw her, I was like, okay, so there are humans here. Like I completely blanked all that from my mind.
No, it's going to be interesting. And like I like that they're cutting the brain tubes with like soy or whatever they were saying. So I'm like, okay, that's like how a world would work too, especially when you don't have a limitless supply of something.
Yes. So
how many people die you think a day? Then they're going to be shipping all the brains there? Like I'm I guess that would be more than enough, but it's a very weird thing to get that structure started because you can't it must just be everyone who dies who donates their organs.
I was just
because you can't just take people's brains.
They said 7,000 people die a day, and that's more than enough to feed everyone. If you Google that statistics, it is like 6,853 people die every day, or a day, or whatever it is.
In America.
Yeah. But like that was the plan, right? But yes, think about the logistics of like organ donorship, or even like think about all the paperwork we'd have to do to get all those brains into one place, into one giant.
And that was not something that was even in place before you would have signed up. That to be a new thing.
Yeah.
If you take my my heart and give it to some sick child when I die, I'm like awesome. If you give my brain to some cannibal, I'm like I don't know how okay I am with that.
Who in like Florida is?
I don't care honestly though. I'm dead.
Well, I feel the same way. But who in like Florida is going to sign a form to be like, oh yeah, those people in like Seattle that I heard about that on the news. So let's make sure I donate. Like my dead mother's brain. Like that's
probably
like what?
Not.
That sounds crazy to me. But I'm putting that aside. That's all fine. And the whole thing. Black market brain stuff. People are starving. Roving gangs of kids who were kicked out because they were zombies and their parents are like scared of them and all that stuff. There's all these plots here, right? And I was like, oh man, what are they gonna do with this? And what do they do with it? Major, I see here you have social work experience. And I was like, oh yeah. Oh my god. That's so dumb.
To me.
I know. I was like, shit. And then he's just doing the same thing again. They're having like group therapy, and he's like, yeah, it is tough on the streets, kids, and they're all cringy dialogue and all that stuff.
There should have been more things with unfed teens going fucking full blown zombie.
Because that's what happens when you don't get fed, right?
And I don't know how they've been avoiding that. I understand they're giving them minimal food rations or something. Yeah. So maybe that's just enough to stave it off. You'd still be starving, but not go full zombie.
Well, but they don't even touch. Like they're not even. At least that I can remember. It sounds like they're like because she says like my siblings are starving or whatever.
Yeah.
right? Where they don't really drive home like, okay, when you starve though, you degrade into like a Romero zombie and like go on like a murderous rampage or
I
something
think what
like
they
that.
all mean is just like, we're
Yes.
so hungry,
I
I
know.
want food.
Yes.
Not like how we would say I'm starving
Oh, I'm
when you're not
starving.
actually starving.
I could eat a horse. But that's the thing, though, is like the implications of letting zombies starve is like much higher, and I hope they get into that. Like you're saying, I hope that comes into
Yeah, I
play.
would want more of that element, and also some had to have escaped
I know.
before the wall
Makes no
went up.
sense.
So I would like some information about that too.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of stuff they can get into, and if they don't, I'm gonna be like, come on, man, you're dropping
Oh,
a lot of balls here.
They will not. I can guarantee you, unfortunately.
That'll be frustrating.
Because like that's what you want, right? Out of this, right? A like secret mission. No one can know you're a zombie. We have to go find this zombie who left Seattle. So we have to sneak out and not tell Fillmore Graves dude. What the fuck's his name? And we have to go like Ravi and like Babino and like whatever. It's like road trip or whatever the fuck. That's like a joke.
Yeah.
'Cause it's a comedy still, but we have to go do something and then like stop a zombie outside somehow, right? There's all these things you could do.
A lot of ways to go. I imagine
could
they
try
will
to
not leave
infiltrate
the
or
walls
something like that.
or bring it up at all. I think there will definitely be something about you're gonna have more of this IRA style "we hate zombies" rise up in there.
Dead enders.
I'd like to know how many humans the zombies are in, because they said then all escape. But is it actually an outnumbering like amount? How many humans are there? Because Seattle's a big place.
Yeah, they said a few 100,000 left, or are still left, or something.
Yeah, it was said. I don't rewind, so I couldn't get it again.
Committed to not rewinding.
Yeah, just those are some details I need to know, because at a certain point, it doesn't matter if you're a zombie or not. There are guns in Seattle, and if you are outnumbered 100-1, humans win. Like, period.
Oh, there you go.
Like, that's just how it goes.
You would think.
That to me is a simple fact. Even if they're not all, even if you think if it's 100-1 and only 20% actually
I was gonna say,
fight.
like, we have to factor in the fact that some people are just home and scared, and
But some of those zombies are just
and all that
chumps. Like, they're not all
Yeah.
Fillmore Graves. It's like, I'm a trained warrior.
Yeah.
Half of them are teenagers and idiots that are starving. They might fight amongst themselves because they're like, hey, Fillmore Graves, you were the one that infected me. Like, I'm more than happy to keep my family alive by defending them.
Yeah. No, and that's the kind of stuff, again, like, with a serious interpretation of this. I agree, like, the setting now is so serious compared to the show being, like, a funny show.
Yeah.
You would want to have a thing of, like, well, this is our family, and some of us are zombies, and some of us are not, and some of us believe in this cause, and some of us hate it, and some of us are just like, hey, we can all be friends here. How can we be friends when we have to eat humans to live? And all this fucking, like, all this stuff, right?
It's hard with it only being brains, too. So you can't even be like, my zombie son, I here, have some of my, like, no, you're like, my brain, I'm dead. Like,
yeah, so we have to get the brains in from somewhere else, all that stuff.
There's a lot of ways this could go, but again, because of what the show is, I'm not too optimistic in great things. I think we'll go on with a season of a couple chuckles.
Yeah, no, I'm interested to see where this goes. I'm totally down with what's going to happen. We didn't talk about
what's his name's dad. What's his name? Blaine, Blake, Blam.
That's like the major thing. We'll save that for
the end.
One more, because that happens and like leads into the actual end of the whole episode.
All right.
You find out Ravi's situation in like a funny way. Because he starts out, at the crime scene making his quips, his normal stuff. Oh, you're so charming, Chakrabarti, you're the man. And then he's like doing the exam. He weighs a brain, and he goes in for it, and starts noshing and all that stuff. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. For me, at least,
yes, I did forget about the rat bite.
Yeah, maybe not everyone was like, wait a minute, oh yeah. But I feel like whoever made this episode was like, listen, we have to hit everybody. We have to establish, right? Even like Peyton's at a restaurant and has to order human food. Like everyone, we have to establish for everyone's benefit who's what and what's going on and who's a zombie and who's not and who's a zombie again and who has their memory and who doesn't. Like, we have to get all this out of the way because they're going to be so confused after this break from this show or whatever.
There was a part, and I couldn't tell if it was a joke in two directions or if it was just like a slide line. When they're at the restaurant, there's like the zombie girl or whatever, and the guy's like, "Oh, this is from the 18th century or whatever." Blah, like he's like whatever he's saying, but he's making it like all nice, and he says something like, "And you can have something from here." And the way he said that, I was like, I wasn't sure. I'm like, is it a joke because he's saying you get a cheap thing, or was he pointing at these are the non-human foods?
So like
And either way, I was like, that's kind of funny.
What I thought he was saying was, we will prepare that dish with any of the following brains. I had the exact same thought,
Right.
And it took me a second to be like, it seemed like he was like, and you can have some shit. It just seemed
Yeah,
like he was
like,
doing
and
something.
I will have the penguin from in the Malaysian and have Fud houses, and you can have Mickey D's.
You can
like,
have. I love Mickey D's.
Well, I could go from right now, but double bacon cheeseburger. Let's do this.
Speaking of all that and jokes and stuff, I liked when Peyton's like, "What about Ravi?" And she's like, "Get back together with him." And like, I was like, "Okay, that's pretty funny." Like you're acknowledging this stupid, because everyone like that too, like trying to remember the relationships between all the people.
Yeah, there's
and like, well, what is going on? And like, wait, do you hate them? You're talking. Is that okay? Okay. Like and like trying to like piece back like this fever dream memory of like the rest of the show up to this point and all that stuff.
Ravi, and I don't know how much shirtless Ravi we've seen in the past. I feel like Ravi seemed to have put on some weight from the last time I saw him.
Oh, wow, shots fired.
A little bit.
Hey, man.
I remembered him being a trim guy, I thought. And
yeah.
He didn't seem very trim right now.
It kind of fed into my image of him being like, I pictured like sleeveless tee, sword, eye patch, scars, and being like, we have to go defeat the zombie menace and all that stuff.
And now you think more of like, it's a guy's dad.
Now I picture he's like, I'll be here, I will read from the book, and Buffy will go fight, and we'll do the thing. Yeah. This is like a whole different vibe. Disappointed.
That happens a lot in like sitcoms and like you know, like your hour-long show is about teens and whatnot. You're like the guy who's the tough guy, and then eventually you see him like shirtless. You're like, he's not really a tough guy at all. And not that Ravi's a tough guy, but it's a thing where you never picture somebody shirtless, and then when they show it to you, you're like,
That's why my shirt always stays on. No, like he's young, younger. He's tall. He's seems quick and stuff like that. So you just have this impression of him as being a dude.
And all celebrities, you're like obviously six packs.
Yeah. No, and I think every now and then he has done something. This is a perfect other segue to mention that they have yet another. They always have to make the point that Clive is a badass.
Yeah.
Like 5'2" Clive has to like catch someone's fists and like shatter their like knuckles or something like that. But he fights with the guy who's a zombie and who's going at him and somehow does the whole thing and then has the gun before him type of scene right at.
He's the best
at Donnie's club. He's the best, but like it's still like let me know if you agree. It's still funny to have him presented as this badass who's like the best.
Well, it's the Napoleon cop. He's got to do what he's got to do.
Well, he's got to go conquer France or whatever. What did Napoleon do? Something with France.
Most of the world.
This brings us, I guess.
Okay, so now we have the Daddy Dearest in the well.
Yes.
Who's not aged very well.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say highlight of the episode for me.
Yeah?
Was more money, more problems. And they play Hammer Time like it was the most dumb, like cringy,
on cue
awesome
when
thing.
he hits the guy in the head,
like ridiculous. But that's what I want out of a zombie comedy. Is I want this ridiculous.
I like that character ever since Prison Break. He's been a great guy to me. That's Theodore Bagwell, Teabag, as his friends know him.
That's horrible.
But
he's back, right?
I don't know how much I think I'm gonna like him though.
No.
In this new role, and it did seem like that all went with a lot of assumptions. So he took over this preacher. The preacher was human, and it seemed like luckily to him, his whole congregation was zombies. Because if there were any humans in that, it would have changed it dramatically. And there were fortunately not one, which I thought was. I'm like, that's a little weird. There's
not one human or whatever. Yeah,
wasn't that strange?
Well, it depends on the demographics of the city and whatever's happening. I get you though.
It felt odd. And they crack them like a melon, and then they feast.
Yeah, so like I thought we might just have Blaine. So like earlier in the episode, Blaine's talking to the well and throwing things down or whatever, right? And you're kind of like, all right, this is just going to be like a recurring theme here, where we get to know Blaine's inner thoughts by him shouting into a well about his thoughts or whatever, right? But he's been stringing his father along on just enough brain to keep him like a maniac or whatever's going on now, and he's back.
I was actually surprised he didn't kill the henchman sooner. Because there was many opportunities. Like he picks him up, he's like hugging him, like almost brain to mouth, all that shit. I'm like, well, he's gonna die right now. He didn't die right now.
Is the henchman a human or he's a zombie, right?
No, he was a human. Remember, he had the bed. I got plantar fasciitis in my feet. Like
I didn't know if he was a human or not.
Yeah,
that's good times. That's weird.
I think that's the only
He doesn't.
Blaine is a human now, right?
He doesn't eat his brain though. Blaine, I don't know.
I can't remember if he seems to have flopped so many times. I can't remember
I
what
know.
he was, and there was no definitive thing that made me go, he's this or not.
So I was sitting there like, did his hair change when he was not a zombie? He was sad and playing piano and loving Peyton, and then he like faked having his memories gone still, and then I don't know if he's
I couldn't remember. I'm like, did it end with him dying, but he didn't die because he had the disease, or is that something like, because that's happened in the past? I'm like, how many times did they heal him? Could they have healed him more than twice? I don't remember.
No,
and
but
they'll
no,
let us know again at some point.
No, but it is like Heroes, right? Where it's like, oh, he does have his powers back, but he didn't get them back the same way he got them back the first time because he lost them a different way. So now he's got his powers, but they're not quite the same. And you're like, what is going on with this show? Please.
Remember when Blaine was in Heroes?
Was he?
Oh, I thought you called that back as a thing because he was in Heroes.
Okay.
He was the samurai.
I do now. But and I like that actor, but I mentioned it mostly just because of how often like Peter and Siler like
no it
lost
worked
their powers,
and it worked. So I thought it was
it was brilliant.
I thought it was a double.
My brain sometimes works in ways I don't understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is kind of doing that where like for a while that was their trick, where like a character would have and like not have the zombie thing at different times. And honestly, I think the Ravi thing is like an angle for that, where like the vaccine works, but you become a zombie every now and then. So I'm kind of thinking temporary zombiness can like come into play.
Sure, like he can get out of the quarantine and like or something maybe.
There you go.
Or,
yeah, I was
going
to
to
say
fall in line with the rebels. Like, he's got a heartbeat.
Yeah, exactly. You can have a heartbeat, but then you can have zombie power at like different times. I was thinking we're gonna have a scene at some point where someone, like appears to die, but it was like their time of the zombie month, and like didn't, they didn't tell anyone or something like that.
Or it'll be a Hulk thing where like you could be a human, but when
you
rage out, you turn into a zombie. Maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say like having it be at a certain time is kind of awkward, but if it was more that that could be somehow turned on and off, there might be like a development. There might be like a plastic brain with like bubbles and like a blue thing, and he's like, I've perfected a serum, we can turn it on and off and all that shit. So we'll get to have some more fun.
It wouldn't surprise me in this
thing.
show, no.
Because that was their one trick. That was their one thing, where season finales and season premieres, people would always be becoming zombies or not becoming zombies. And we're always like, what is happening to your organs? How did they come back? What is going on? Aren't you just full of, like, goo and disgusting
Weren't you
death?
shot multiple times?
Yeah. What about all of your injuries? What's happening? That's fine.
Yeah.
Lighthearted. I think that's everything.
That's pretty much everything that happens in this episode of note. So let us know in the comments what you thought about it. Don't die in a fire, and we'll see you next time.
Hello, internets. I just love watching JustDaggers. If you've enjoyed this video as much as I have, click that subscribe button. Peace out, homies.